I just would like to talk about the importance of the breath, and also how we can use this amazing tool to increase our longevity, to boost our energy, to reduce illnesses, and also create calmness, get rid of anxiety, and all sorts of mental disturbances. So there was a question about, how important the breath is. Like, if you take a big breath and you exhale all the air, and if I just ask you just to hold your breath and see how that goes and don't breathe, then soon after maybe half a minute, you will realize that this is the most fundamental requirement to our life. And it's not just for us, but it's also for the animal kingdom as well. So we can go without food for about 3 weeks. I know it sounds a lot, but actually the human body is able to sustain itself for about 3 weeks without any kind of solid material. And we can go without water, perhaps maybe 3 days, but without air, maybe 3 minutes, and then life as we know it is ended. So that's how important the breath is. But how often do we actually pay attention to our breath? Like, not very often, because the breath is taken care of by the autonomic nervous system, which means it is like a program. So it is going by itself. You don't have to pay attention to our breath, especially when, let's say, when we are asleep or when we are in deep sleep, when we are completely out. The body is still breathing, whether we are aware of that or not. So it's part of the autonomic nervous system or the involuntary nervous system, things that we normally are unable to influence. Let's say we are unable to influence our heartbeat or our digestion, our body temperature, and also all sorts of things. But the breath is kind of like overlapping, because we have the ability to slow down our breath. We have the ability to speed up the breath. We can also hold our breath. So we can make the breath conscious. And when you start consciously influencing your breath, you can have amazing effect on different systems in the body, which we normally don't have control over, such as, let's say, the heart rate or the brain function. So when we breathe, we take in prana, which is life force. It is not air itself, but it is being absorbed through breathing, also through water, drinking and eating, and sunlight and sleep. But however, breath is the most vital, so to say, and we can fully tap into this realm, which is so-called uncontrollable for us. Just simply by controlling our breath and slowing down our breath, we can eventually slow down our heart rate, because the systems are interconnected. So think about what happens when you get frightened. Then the heart rate goes up, the pupils will dilute, and we start also breathing faster. And also the breath becomes more shallow. So it's more like because we are in a stressful situation. So the stressful situation can affect how we breathe, but it is true vice versa. So our breath can influence our state of being. It is very much linked with chest breathing and abdominal breathing. So when we start breathing into the chest, it's more of a signal that we are in a stressful situation. And we can get used to this chest breathing, that's unfortunately. Like, once we start going to the school, the breathing changes because we start sitting a lot and like hunching over the desk and perhaps writing or working on the laptop. So it become like a common problem for modern day man that we don't breathe properly. Like, you might have heard this saying that sitting is the new smoking, because we start sitting so much, we don't do exercise, we don't move, and also because of our posture becomes quite poor, and that restricts our breathing. And also not just that, but it influences our nervous system in a negative way. Because as I said, when we feel stressed, we start breathing into the chest. But we can be in a non-stressful situation, but we continue breathing into the chest, which becomes like an automated habit. Then we almost always feel that we are under pressure, we are under stress. So how to come out from the stress is very simple: to retrain the nervous system to breathe into the abdomen, to breathe into the belly again. Because if you think about what happens with a child when they are sleeping, or if you look at animals like a cat or a dog, when they are sleeping, you can see only the belly is moving. Their chest is not really expanding. It's more like the abdomen is coming in and out. And this become like a pandemic that 90% of the population mainly breathe into the chest. And the lungs have three compartments. There's the lower compartment, like at the bottom of the lungs, there's the midsection, and there's the upper section here in the clavicular. So we basically forgot to use the lower compartment of the lungs, which is the most expensive, and it is expanding in the easiest way, because once we breathe into the chest, we have to like expand the whole rib cage. So there is basically, it's more energy, or it's less energy efficient, because the body is using energy by expanding the entire rib cage. Also, we start using the muscles here in the neck, the scalenes, the upper trapezius, and we can develop chronic neck pain, for example, because we're not using the diaphragm anymore. So the diaphragm is the main muscle for breathing. It goes around the rib cage and it sits like a dome. So it looks like this when the lungs are empty. As we inhale, the diaphragm should move down, and then it draws air into the lungs. And then as we exhale, the diaphragm moves back up. So it's like a dome-shaped sheet of muscle. It's very thin. It's basically separating the lungs and the heart from the rest of the abdomen. But it is the primary muscle for breathing. And then when we start breathing into the abdomen, the diaphragm massages the vagus nerve. So this could be like a good representation. The vagus nerve comes out from the back of the skull. It's the 10th cranial nerve, and goes down to the neck, and basically innervates most of our internal organs, such as the heart, the lungs, the spleen, the kidneys, the liver, the small intestines. And basically what this vagus nerve does is send signals to the body to relax. Because when we get into a stressful situation, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in, which is the fight and flight mode, when we are ready to fight or run for our life. So in that moment, the digestion shuts down, blood is being pumped into the extremities, and the heart rate goes up, our breathing changes. And then when the danger is gone, let's say a dog attacked us and we run away, and then now we're safe, then slowly the system goes back to equilibrium. So that is the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in through the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is initiates this rest and digest mode to go back to stillness, because every organism can be in fight and flight mode for a certain period of time, but it is not natural and not healthy to remain in that continuously, because we are burning ourselves out, basically. You can think about, when we just work too many hours during the day and we hardly have any rest, or we don't have nutritious food, then how far can we go like that? After a while, there will be a burnout. So it's not really the question of yes or no, it is the question of when it's going to happen. So how to increase our energy, which is basically when you do breath work, of course, you energize the system, you oxygenize the system, but also you draw in life force and prana. And this life force gets stored in the cells, in the mitochondria. So this is now I'm talking about scientific evidences of breath work when we do, when we speed up our breath, or when we do breath retention, and we create hermetic stress on the body. Hermetic stress means, because when we say the word stress, or when we hear the word stress, we almost have like a negative connotation to it, but there is a constructive stress. Because let's say if we never go to the gym, we never stress our muscles and they begin to atrophy, which means they begin to we're becoming leaner, we start losing our muscle mass and our muscle strength. So when we do yoga, we stress our body to a healthy extent. Let's say 10%. We get out of our comfort zone. So there is a healthy way of stress when we start lifting weights, or when we start exercising, or when we have like cold shower, which nobody really likes to do, but it's basically, it pushes our boundaries a little bit, pushes our comfort zone. And because in this modern day life, we got really comfortable. You know, we just press a button and the heater goes on, or if it's too hot, then the AC goes on. And the same with the, you know, we just turn the tap so we don't have to move that much to get water and things like this. So life become really, really comfortable, and then we can get used to that comfort. So to push ourselves slightly out of the limit, one way is doing breath work. And when we do breath work, after that, we can do breath retention, and we hold our breath as long as we can comfortably. So we don't have to go into a very extreme when we feel like we're going to faint, but we just hold the breath. So we put a hermetic stress on the body that, oh, there is a lack of oxygen in the system. And then we recharge it or re-oxygenize the blood. And then again, we do another retention. So with this technique, basically, we increase the mitochondria. The mitochondria is like tiny little batteries within the cells, which is holding on to the energy of the cells, an ATP in a chemical form. So when we do breath work, we can increase the size of the mitochondria. So these batteries, they become bigger, they become stronger, more charged, more full of energy, and we can also increase the number of mitochondria within the cell. So this is the scientific approach to what really happens when we do this kind of practices. Also, it has emotional impact. There have been studies in the, I think it was the Stanford University in the US, working with PTSD clients, mainly from war veterans who were in the battlefield and came back with PTSD, post traumatic stress syndrome, and they were unable to go back to this rest and digest mode. They were in continuously in fight and flight mode, and then they were put on medication, but the medication was not working, and many of them signed up for an alternative program where they were taught yoga, meditation, and breathing, and then they were measuring their state of being, and the conclusion they come to was that the breathwork was the most effective, because it almost immediately gets you out of your mind, in terms of you stop thinking about, let's say, the negative things that usually are going in the back of the head. And also physiologically, there's a change, because you start affecting your breathing, and that affects your heart rate, that affects your blood pressure, and also it affects your energy level, and it brings about an emotional release also. So those trapped emotions, they are bothering us. It can be anger, anxiety, sadness, shame, whatever. Like, we all have something usually. So those emotions can come to the surface and they can be released. So that is another amazing, wonderful benefit. And there is energetic benefit if somebody wants to do go into the path of self-realization or liberation, moksha, whatever you want to call it. Then basically we want to cleanse our chakras, the energy centers, and cleanse the nadis, which are the energy channels, or similar to the meridians in Chinese medicine. So there are different layers where we can experience benefits. So it's not just one way or the other, it has many benefits.